So I had this friend in school. He was my classmate. We were in the same department. And in school, whenever I went on holiday, a lot of people had this habit of coming back to school from home, maybe 2 weeks after resumption. Some people were so notorious they can come a month after resumption. A lot of people just extended the holidays. But I wasn't one to extend the holidays much, at maximum by a week. And even when I was going back to school after a week, I realized I was very early. I was probably one of the only ones to get to school very early. But then every time I got to school, I always saw this my classmate friend. He was always there. I'm like, this guy, for the past 3 years, I've never gotten to school before him. So he would have gotten to school, he would have done registration, he would have sorted out his accommodation and was good to go. And I used to admire his discipline. So, sometimes when I'm at home and we're on holiday, I would think, man, this guy would have gone back. When the holiday was over, I said, this guy would have gone back to school. I better pack up my bags and go back. But then I would go back early and I would still meet him. He would have gotten to school before me. So one day, I had a conversation with him. I said, look, how do you do this? How do you have so much discipline to come back to school immediately after the holiday? And he told me, come back to school. I don't go home. And that really shocked me. He told me, I don't go home. I'm in school throughout. Hasn't anybody ever told you? And I told him, I never knew. He said, yeah, a lot of people know. I don't go home. When you guys go on holiday, I am in school. And I asked him, why? Why would anybody choose to stay in school when the school is on holiday? And he said, because I hate home. I hate my family. I hate going home. So I don't go home. Coming to school, getting admission to school was one of the best things that happened to me because it gave me a reason to leave home. And I was shocked. He said, I don't love school. I just hate home. It's better than home. School is better than home. And I thought to myself, look at this guy that I have been admiring. I've been admiring this guy, thinking of how disciplined he is, how he's able to just cut his holiday or just, discipline to just say the holiday has ended and I'm going back to school immediately. And look at me in this non-declared competition, trying to get to school before him. And I'm looking at all the things he's able to achieve before other people resume. And I said he's able to settle his accommodation, able to do his registration, able to do everything. And here I am trying to be like him. And here he is telling me he doesn't even go home. He's at school. 3 months he's there, alone at school. And that was a very sad thing to hear, that this guy never went home. He hated his family to the point where he would rather stay on an empty campus alone for months. Doing what? And I asked him, what does he do? He says he sleeps, he wakes up, he goes for walks and stuff like that, goes to the cyber cafe. Then we had cyber cafes. There were no phones with internet. I said, that's kind of sad. I had to tell him, that's sad. And he said, yes, he knows that whenever the school is about to go on holiday, we finish our exams, when we are happy, he becomes anxious and sad. He's sad when the school is winding down. When we are getting happy that school is winding down, he's sad. When he sees us all going home joyfully, he looks at us with so much envy. So much envy. It's like these guys are actually eager to go home. And here I was looking at him, thinking he was the model student. He might have been the model student to the school, to lecturers, because they're like, oh, he registers early and stuff like that. But then he was less than a model human being who had no home. He was a vagabond. You see, what I'm trying to say is sometimes we judge ourselves too harshly because we compare ourselves to people that we shouldn't compare ourselves to. Sometimes we think we have a problem because we are comparing ourselves with people who we do not see that have a real problem. Sometimes you think you sleep too much. I sleep too much. Because you're comparing yourself with somebody that has a deep worry that stops them from sleeping. Deep anxieties that stop them from sleeping. So when you wake up, you're like, and the person tells you, I've been awake since 3 a.m. I got to work, and they're like, wow, what kind of diligence is this? You don't know. The person not telling you what woke them up. They are not telling you that their mind can't sleep. It's a lack of peace, not a diligence. Sometimes you think you are overweight. Think you're overweight. Oh, I'm too fat. My arms are too big. My stomach is too big. My legs are too big. Because you're comparing yourself with somebody who cannot eat. Not that they don't want to eat. They're not on any diet. They cannot eat. Some of them have sicknesses stopping them from eating. You think they are living healthy lifestyles. No, but they are just sick. They cannot eat. It's not a choice. It's a restriction. If they eat that thing, they will die in a short time. But here you are looking at them, comparing your life to them and saying, look at this person. See how slender she is. How slender he is. The person is dealing with a disease. A disease. Sometimes some of them, they cannot afford it. If they could afford it, they will be your size. I'm not saying don't take care of your health, but don't ignorantly compare yourself to people. Do it because you want to take care of yourself, not because somebody is a particular weight size. You don't know who that person is. Sometimes you say you are lazy because there's somebody at work that work keeps celebrating. They're the first to get to work. They're the last to leave work. Work is giving them awards. Ideal staff of the month. They've won it like 6 times in a row. Half the year, they're staff of the month. They seem to be getting promoted because they committed their life to work. But what you don't see is the home they are running away from. A lot of them run away from home. So they rather be at work. So when work is closing, their heart starts beating. People are going, where do I go? And you think they are working extra hours because they are hardworking. No, they are not hardworking. Some of them are not hardworking. Some of them are lost. They will go home. The same time you go home, if they had a family, a loving family to go to, a loving marriage to go to. Some of these people that work, celebrate, they should be watching them. They should be on suicide watch. Highly unhappy. The problem with comparison is that a lot of times it's very lopsided. We don't know the full story. We don't know the full story. So you look at your life and you think your life is awkward. Your life is terrible. But you're comparing yourself to the wrong person. They've never told you what's actually going on in their lives. I have some people that have families and they think, oh man, my life is so terrible. Can't even, wherever I am in the house, there's noise everywhere. I need some silence. Just don't want noise in the house. Because you compare yourself with people that are incredibly lonely. lonely, but they put up photos on social media, dressing up their loneliness, telling you, oh, I just finished watching a movie on Netflix with a glass of wine and, on my bed on Saturday, nobody disturbing me. Oh, just enjoying the silence, dressing up loneliness. If you check their heart, they're actually sad. They want some noise. They want to hear some movement. I'll never forget the story of a lady that I think was in the UK that died and they didn't find her for years. When they found her, she was on a chair with remote control in her hand and she was skin and bones, reduced to a skeleton. I'm talking about for years. I can't remember the duration. But it was over a year. In her apartment, TV was still on. She had paid for the rent and everything. She had paid for everything in advance. Nobody needed to come and see her. And she died in her apartment. Nobody found her. For years. For years. She died watching TV. Sometimes I feel that way. I have 3 kids. Sometimes I feel, oh man, the house is so noisy. I need to get away. So sometimes my kids and my wife, they take some time and go and stay with my parents or my wife's parents for a weekend or so. And sometimes I'll be so happy. Oh, I have the house to myself. Finally, some silence. I can get to watch TV and do whatever I want to do. But one thing I realize is when I get back home, the house is so silent and I feel, oh, finally I can watch TV. I don't watch anything. I end up going to bed really early at 8 o'clock. I see myself awake at 2 o'clock. I can't go back to bed. And I'm like, oh man, I really miss my family. The house is so silent. So silent. And sometimes a weekend seems like a month. And I can't wait for them to get back home. But I'm like, this is not what these people show me on Instagram when they show me they're at home alone. They make it seem like if it's so much fun. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes we are so envious of people in relationships. I see a lot of young people so envious of people in relationships. They're like, these married people don't pressure us. They're pressuring us. But you don't understand that some of them are going through hell in marriage. Some of them, all you just see are photos of smiling. But that's just 1 second. The next second, after that camera goes off, is blows and slaps and abuse. They never filmed that or photographed that. That never goes on the gram. But here you are, a young person, just thinking, God, when? God, when? Comparing yourself to them. Not knowing that your life is much happier than theirs. We need to stop comparing ourselves to other people, especially people we do not really know. We need to start being more thankful for the things we have in our lives and spend less time looking at the things we do not have. Like that, my friend, I never knew. I thought it was the ideal student. I thought it was discipline. I didn't know it was deep unhappiness. I didn't know he was looking at us and saying, wow, why isn't this my life? He deeply hated his family. And after we had that conversation, I never used him as a standard to rush back to school again. Because I realized how blessed I was to want to push my holiday by a week, 2 weeks. That was a blessing. Some people might have said it was indiscipline, but it was a blessing. That indiscipline in quote was a blessing. Someone was wishing to struggle with that level of indiscipline. I hope this makes some sense to someone today listening to this podcast. Don't be so quick to admire people's lives when you really do not know what goes on behind closed doors. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and you've been listening to my podcast, ProUp Masterclass.